What's up, guys? I'm Albert Green, and this is the Music Talk podcast. Today we're joined by Kastra. He's a music producer, makes EDM music. And yeah, introduce yourself, man.
My name is Ray. I go by Kastra. I am from New Jersey, born and raised here. I've been a full-time producer, probably about full-time where it's been my main occupation for the last 4 years. I've been active since about 2012. I got my first top 10 Billboard record this year.
Oh wow,
Did
that's cool.
my did some awesome collaborations last year. I did one with Timmy Trumpet. He was
Oh
number
wow, that's
number
really big.
13 in DJ Mag last year. I did official remixes for Blau, Showtek, Justin Caruso, Jack Martino, Madison Mars. Released music on Armada, Musical Freedom, After Hours, um, Enhanced Music, and anything else you want to ask me, man. I'm at your disposal.
All right, so tell us about your background. How did you get into this?
I've been making music since I was about 13. Um, Started off as a guitar player, was really into metal and rock music. Probably got into dance music around the age of 19. I went over to Australia and they were way ahead of us at the time. This was around like 2010. So if you can imagine, it was like the whole Steve Aoki, Bloody Beetroots, Calvin Harris, his
Yeah.
second record time era. So like I always hated going to nightclubs when I was in America. I would always go out and like it was all Akon and that kind of shit. So for the first time, I would go over there and actually like going out because you would hear like Dead Mouse and all this kind of like
Yeah, all these cooler
all
artists.
this cool artists that I'd never really heard of before, and it was a little bit more cutting edge, and it was just more up my alley. So during that time, I got a copy of Ableton. I was probably in Ableton like I think it was like 7 at the time. Started messing around with it, and started was kind of making like electro rock, almost like Nine Inch Nails type tunes. And by the time I came back from Australia, I was like kind of getting into producing more than I was even playing my guitar. So this is 2010. So if you can imagine, this was when like the whole EDM boom happened.
Yeah.
So I started making music around that time, and I stayed at school for another year to get my master's degree. So I got that, and during that time, I started making original music, and then kind of took a year off after I got my master's degree to see if I can give like a real run at it.
Yeah.
And then things started kind of progressing, and then year after year, it got more and more possible for me to make it my full-time occupation, which I did at one point, and been doing it ever since.
So who was that like one big influence that got you to go and say, I'm going to try and do this for a living?
I don't know. Man, there were so many great artists at the time. I mean, still active artists, but there was a lot of guys who were kind of doing it at the same. Like I started to see a lot of artists making it an occupation. Like a guy like Blau, right? Like he started out
Yeah.
making mashups around that time, and then I saw his kind of rise. And I was
Yeah,
like, wow,
I
there's like kids my age who are actually making this a possibility.
so the thing about Blau is when I was younger, he used to be family friends with my cousin. So um, I would say he was really my influence into the music world. Just because the guy was like he had his whole story of like how he was just about to join the stock market and stuff like that.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about.
Sure.
So yeah, so like I feel like just the fact that he had such a big opportunity and let it all go for music, it just really inspired me to continue and like make it a
Yeah,
career.
absolutely. I would have to say I relate to that as well. Like I said, I was, in school getting my master's degree, and then I was like, this seems worth. I could never forgive myself if I didn't give it a real shot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I didn't want to look back 20 years ago like, hey, I had like a little bit of momentum there, and then I just abandoned it just to take on a job that I probably wouldn't have been as passionate about in the long run anyway. So I'm happy that I stuck with it, and just kind of it's just like anything else, man. It's just time and pressure.
Yeah. So what do you love about doing this? I mean, there's obviously a big reason as to why you're doing it. Because
Yeah,
I
no,
mean, personally, I think like we're not making the real money off the music, but you know what I'm saying?
yeah. Well, I mean, you can. The thing about doing this as a full time career is like you have to kind of have your hands in everything. Like if you're expecting like your royalties to just pay your income, you're
No,
surely
no way.
mistaken, at least. So you have to have your hands, like I do a lot of mixing and mastering and
And you do that on
compile.
the side? Like you're doing
Yeah,
that for other artists?
yeah, yeah. So I do
Oh, that's
that.
cool.
Like, so you do that, and then your royalties, and then shows, and then if you have your hands in ghost production, all of that, and like a bunch of other things. If you compile that all into one stream or one income, it's like a normal person's income. You know what I mean? Obviously, it can be higher or lower depending on your success, but it can be done. You just have to like really, have your hands in everything and stay focused and just keep
Yeah,
your
I
head to
get
the
that.
ground. Really, you know what I mean?
So, what would you be doing without music? Like, I know you're speaking about your masters. So what would have you done with that?
So I went to well, I was actually, so I did study marketing, and then I got my MBA, so it's a Master's of Business Administration, and I was working in music. Like I was doing internships I did one at Atlantic Records, I did one at
Oh,
Megaforce
nice.
Records. So I was working in music. I just thought that I kind of wanted to be in the business side of things. But what I noticed at a lot of these internships was that a lot of the people that were in charge were not like exactly, or at least at the major ones that I was working at. A lot of the ones that I was working at, the people in charge weren't exactly what I would call music people. They were like business people. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that. You're in charge of running a business, but it was like I was looking at somebody's credentials, and she worked at like ABC before she came to work at Atlantic Records, and I'm like, that's so odd. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's like because treating music as a product is, I mean, it's definitely a way that a lot of people look at it, but it's just hard to because it's such a weird thing to quantify. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So how have you like navigated yourself through all of that? I mean, obviously there's a big business to the music industry, but how do you get around that?
It's hard, man. Like you have to develop your eye for bullshit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are they like a lot of people just want to attach themselves to whatever you're doing, and
Yeah, they want to leech off you.
yeah, and it's not even that. It's just well, yes, definitely, but it's like a lot of people they just want to say that they're in music and that they're they work with this person when they don't
Yeah.
actually do anything. You know what I mean? Which is I totally see. You see that all the time. So you kind of have to see like I'm of the opinion and I take the mentality that I call everything as bullshit until I see it is actually happening.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it took me a while to like see through that because people are like, oh, I can do this for you, I can do that for you, I know this person, and I would be like, oh, that's awesome, and then it they would end up they were just full of shit or they would just flake out on you at the end. So I had like a manager for a while and that was working out pretty good, but he kind of went more towards pop music, and then so when we disbanded, I kind of put it all on me, which was good because instead of asking that person to be like, hey, did you send an email? I would just send that email. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was just it was easy for me to just like take control of it, and that's kind of when I really saw a rise in my success is when I just took full accountability for me myself as an artist.
So speaking about management, how did you come about that? Because I know a lot of like starting artists, they wanna like attach to someone that will lead them through the industry.
Sure. Well, what I would say is that you don't need a manager until you actually need a manager. Until you
Yeah.
until you can't. Um, I mean, what you want to do ideally is surround yourself with a team of people that can help move you to the next level. But a lot of people and a lot of artist managers, when they're just starting out, they don't know how to do that. So it's kind of you're kind of figuring it out at the time. And a lot of people, like musicians, think that they need a manager to validate them, which I would say is completely untrue. I would say it's great to not negotiate on behalf of yourself, but if you're just getting a manager to say that you have a manager, that's not the
Yeah.
way to do it. And a lot of people do that because they think that like, oh, let me put you in touch with my team. Like, dude, your team, like, your team is one guy who's never literally done anything. So it's like, just talk to me. We'll get a lot further than putting a person in between this who doesn't really know what he's talking about
I
anyway.
totally get that, man. And I feel like like with my podcast, like I personally been reaching out to people myself, being that like this is all going on, I can't really have anyone help me. So I've reached out to people and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, email us." And they'll first say, "Yeah, I'm down, but email us." Like I don't understand the whole thing about that. Do you want to explain a
Well,
little?
I mean, I think it's kind of just it could be one of a few things. Maybe when you move something to email away from Instagram or whatever,
It's
however
more
that's how you
professional.
contacted me. No, it's not even that. It's just that you're able to like time things out. Like when I'm looking at an email, I can like look at the email, look at my schedule, maybe give it a day to see if I'm waiting for something to come in, as opposed to like if you message me on Instagram and I don't answer right away, it kind of comes off like you're like being like a dickhead or
Yeah, I
something.
get that.
So it's like it just kind of moves it to a little bit more like it spreads like a longer time frame. So I'm cool with that. But and like I said, if there's other people you need to get involved, if you're a duo, if you do have a team behind you, that's totally fine. I mean, this is no problem right now. Obviously, everyone's in quarantine. Everyone
Yeah,
has
that's
the
why I figured
time.
I'd run it.
There's no excuse right now. Everybody's got the time. So yeah, I don't think that that's like it's not. I don't say it's a dig. It's just like it's also easy just to like keep all your records in one thing.
Yeah.
It's like if I could never, it's easy for me to like search through my email, like, oh, what was the name of that podcast I did? Podcast April, whatever, and then I could find you and
Yeah.
be like, oh, this is what I wanted to promote or whatever. It's just easy to keep records of things. I think. At least
All right.
that's how I promote it. You know.
Okay, so that makes me feel a little better. But so have you had any like experiences like that where you've reached out to someone and they've totally like blocked you out?
Dude, absolutely. If you haven't, you're not in the music business. That's just how it works. Like musicians as a whole take more no than any other person I know. Like I always say that if I ever like quit this and I had to go like for an interview or something, and the guy was telling me like, why should I hire you? I'd be like, dude, I defy you to find one person who has heard no more than me that you've interviewed. There's like you develop such a thick skin just because so many things like fail before something really works, and it takes such persistence. That's why you see people that are so talented just like fall off because it's so hard to keep going. But it's the people who do are the ones that rise to that level that you want to attain.
So
You have to have just go ahead.
no, continue.
You have to have such just persistence and thick skin, and if you think that you're the only one who's hearing no on a daily basis multiple times, you're surely mistaken. Everyone has been in that position, and if somebody doesn't get back to you or they say no respectfully, it shouldn't discourage you. It could be that you don't have the reputation yet. It
Yeah.
could be that that song just isn't good enough. You know, it's many things, and this is a business. People are trying to advance their careers. They don't want to like take all this time to work on something that's not going to help their career, or B, like they'll end up doing more of the work. It's so many variables. You
Yeah.
know?
So like personally, I feel like I appreciate an honest opinion, um, but a lot of people are let down. So like give us one tip that you've gotten in the past that really gave you the urge to continue and not like throw it into a project file.
I have no problem. What I look for in feedback is overall song, right? Like if I send a track to somebody, I'm like, hey, what do you think of this? And they come back like, hey, turn your hi hat down by 1 decibel. I'm like, dude, that doesn't help me. Like, is the song good or is the song not good? You know what I mean? Is it a hit or is it not a hit? You know, like so I'm looking for overall perspective. So when I send feedback out to people, I try to find people that are professional, that are in the same, around the same level as me. They don't have to be,
Yeah.
but you know, people that are around the same level as me, because I know that I can trust their opinions, and I want them to be honest and tell me what they actually think about it. I feel like a lot of artists fall into the pattern of sending it to people who always tell them the yes, and that's great.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I don't like
Go
that.
ahead. No, it's not. It's not the way to get better. It's
100%.
better to send it to someone who's like critical of it and tears it to shreds. It might feel like shit, but at least you're like, okay, I know what I need to work on.
Yeah.
And like I said, it just kind of comes down to having thick skin and knowing that they're being honest and stepping away from that creative bubble that you were just in.
Yeah. So give your fans like one tip to just really keep going on that level, you know.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things you could do. One, I say always try to finish the song of what you started so that you have the complete idea. Like when people first start producing, one of the habits that they get into is you'll start a bunch of tracks but you won't actually finish anything.
Yeah.
Right? That's a classic mistake. And a lot of people do that because you'll get the idea but you don't know how to form a song around it. So there's a couple of ways that I think you can get around that. And one is like either start off by copying other tracks. And I don't mean like to release.
I get that.
But you can copy a track just to see how a song is made. So it's like if you want to make a particular style, you could start off by making that drop, making the break, and just seeing how the songs and the elements move in and out of each
Yeah, and
other.
then
And
after
you'll
that,
learn a
you
lot of
can
that,
like
right?
I've done that in my past, and I've taken like let's say Roses by Chainsmokers, and I wanted to make a like a future based type of song. I'd line it up, and then I'd just remake it, take the drums, eventually put them in there, and then switch it up, and then just make my own song out of it. So literally as easy as that.
It is, and it's you just gotta find a strategy of what works for you when you're trying to complete songs. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because that's the main goal, and it's awesome to like come up with a sweet synth line or something, and then you get stuck, and then you're like, I don't want to go back to that because the feat of making the whole song just seems too impossible.
Yeah. And
Totally get
that
that.
happens like very very often. Where you just
Yeah,
get to
that's
that break
normal.
point.
That's totally normal, and like what you have to figure out is how to get around that. So,
Yeah.
like I said, is maybe just try copying songs so that you get in the habit of completing things. You know what I mean? And you know how to do it. Um, that's a good way. Another great way is to like just make a full loop and then copy and paste it for 3 minutes and then just start removing shit. So it's like you can it still works all together, but like you remove the leads here and the bass here for your break, and then you gradually build it up to the main loop that we were. That helps a lot. Um, what I do is like I feel like just when I'm in the creative process, it's very easy for me to get stuck on like mixing something, and then I'll work on that for 20 minutes, and I'll lose my creative space. So I'll try to find a sound, like I'll just like hammer through presets, right? If I'm looking for like a chord sound, I'll find something that's close, move on, and then you find the next thing that's close, and then move on. So after one day, you've got like the idea of the song, and then you just go in and zero in on like each sound, and then perfect it, and then
Yeah.
because if you find a Rhodes sound, like a synth sound, and you spend 25 minutes trying to like get it perfect, you're gonna lose the creative idea. Like I need to just get it out as fast as possible, and then I'll go back and work on it.
Yeah, I mean, especially with mixing and mastering, it's definitely hard to continuously do it. Like, I don't think I could sit there and master a song for 3 hours straight because when you're listening to
So
all those
yeah,
EQs and shit like that, it's like,
your ears get tired.
exactly.
You lose complete perspective of things. Like I try to break it down into three separate processes, like the creative process of making music, arranging songs, writing music, right? I try to do all that. Like I said, just try to find stuff that's close and get the idea out. So when I go back to it to mix it, I'm like, okay, this is easy. I just need to fix this, fix that. And then from the last process, then I'll do it for mastering. It's just easier to do that. It's much easier to do it that way than trying to like blend those three things,
Yeah.
because you get a false impression of a song that could be complete when it actually isn't, just because it's loud. You know what I mean? Something could be a well mixed piece of shit, and it's just like
Yeah.
the idea is bad. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So if you get something sounding good before you move on to mixing, um, it'll be fine. It should sound good before you move to mixing. It should sound good before you go to mastering. Like a good song is a good song. Like you could take any Avicii song, solo the piano, solo the vocals, and it plays out perfectly just fine.
Yeah.
It's still great. You know what I mean? Um, so it's got to be great at its fundamentals. It's got to be good. You just try to build a song from the.
So yeah, man. I mean, that's pretty dope. But let's hear more about your music. You have a new song out with Enhanced, right?
Yes. So my most recent single was at the end of January. It was the follow up to the song that I did with QDB that hit number 8
Yeah.
on Billboard.
Oh wow, it's dope.
Yeah, thanks. So the song came out on Enhanced. It's a collaboration with an artist named Blue Ivy from Las Vegas, and it featured Runaground. I don't know if you remember Runaground from that mate. Like he had a huge hit like 2 or 3 years ago called "Chasing Me Down." So he was
Possibly if
this,
I heard it.
yeah. So he was the singer on that. If you go on YouTube or Spotify, you'll be like, oh my god, I totally remember this song. So it was the single came out on Enhanced, which is Tritonal's label. It's doing okay. It was a weird time to release music, obviously with the quarantine and everything that's going on.
Yeah.
Like streaming is totally down. We put the song out in January, so it kind of was in a heavily saturated time for new music. So it's not performing as well as I would like, but one thing I've noticed, dude, you can't hit only homers.
Yeah, 100%.
Some songs are going to do better than others, and you just got to keep on going. So next single comes out next month, so just kind of preparing for that. Hopefully things have kind of subsided by then, and it's not a
Yeah,
weird
I
time
hope
to
so
release
too.
music. You know?
So tell us more about that process of making that song.
Of making Around Me. the
Yeah,
song
just
in January?
briefly.
Um, let's see. So I started off with a writer. Her name is Brooke Tomlinson. She's been a singer on a bunch of spinning records. She's a great singer, but they wanted a more notable singer on it, so they got Runaground. Um, Started working on it probably over a year ago, and then we finally finished it. And then I had been trying to Enhance had been trying to sign a song of mine for a while, and that just seemed like
So they reached out to you?
yeah.
Okay, that
So
at that point in your career, you probably feel very good about that.
well, yeah. I mean, dude, it's because you try so hard to reach these labels. You know what I mean? Like I had been reaching out to them for 2 years. Like, and then I did a remix for them for Madison Mars like
Oh,
2 years
nice.
ago.
Yeah.
So that's like that's a great way to like get in with labels. Is if you get approached for a remix, do it. I don't care what the price is. Like if they offer you any back end, that's great. But it's a great way to get in with certain labels to show them that you can deliver quality songs. So I kind of got in with them then, but I was not able to sign anything with them. They're very particular about their sound. Like they don't like things that are too poppy. They actually passed on You and Me.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so that was funny. Like actually,
That was a great song.
thank you. And it's just funny because dude, that song got passed on by three
That's the one with
labels.
2DB, right?
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
song that we got a BPM breaker on BPM. It hit number 4 on BPM. It hit
Listen,
number 8.
they're lost, man. Really,
Exactly.
they're lost.
It hit number 8 on Billboard. And so it's like it's when you get denied by a record label, that doesn't necessarily mean that the song is bad. It just
Doesn't at
means
all.
it's not for them.
Exactly.
And they're going to be wrong a lot. You know what I mean? That job, A&R is an impossible job as it is. No one can just see like what's a hit and what is not. Like you can do your best, but like there's so many exterior factors that go into like a song being successful. So I don't blame them for that, but it's kind of funny like when they pass on a song and then
Yeah.
it does really well. It's kind of just
It
like
came and
I told you,
bit them in
I
the
told you
ass.
so. Exactly. So they were sure they weren't going to miss on the next one. So they signed this one, they wrapped this one up, which was the next logical follow up to that song, but it hasn't hit like You and Me has, which is fine. Like I said, not every single song is going to be a home run, but
Yeah,
you got to just keep going, man.
You definitely got to keep going. So tell us more about the record label. Like I know it's very interesting to hear about how they work with the artists, and I mean personally, I just want to know also.
What, are you talking about? Which label are you talking about? The
Enhanced, yeah. If
yeah,
you could, I don't know.
Sure, absolutely, man. Any of the labels that I've worked, I'd be happy to talk with you about. Enhanced is very particular about their sound. Like I said, they'll pass on something if it's too poppy. It's got to be in line with basically something that Tritonal would play, right? It's their label. So think progressive house, like that's somewhat more dramatic vocals, nothing that is too poppy, nothing that's too major key. I have sent them so many songs that they have denied that I thought were awesome songs, right? And then this one just happened to be the one that they wanted.
So were you in direct contact with someone from Enhanced, or okay?
I am. So they reach out to me every so often. Maybe at this point, they're reaching out to me very often about signing more music. But for a while, like I said, I couldn't get my music to them, and I thought it was a perfect fit. Eventually, did a remix for them. Kind of got my in. They passed on a bunch of music, and then we finally found one.
Yeah.
That worked for us, and that song is perfectly in line with their sound. Like anything else that you would hear, it fits perfectly on their hands. And most labels are like that. You'll find a hard.
Yeah, you can even tell like Martin Garrix's label, Stamped. Yeah, it has a definitely a
blinders,
specific
TV
sound.
noise type stuff. Yeah,
And you also know that because in all of his mixes, you hear him playing only record label songs and his songs. So
well, he's got a financial interest in those songs.
Yeah.
Right? It's like he wants them to be successful, and that's the good thing about like going to a label that's owned by an artist is they have a financial interest in making that song a hit. So Martin Garrix can break a song. Don Diablo's label could break a song just by Don playing it at a Tomorrowland. Everyone's like, "What is that song? I need to know that song." And then he get more money in his pocket, right? Because he owns part of that song anyway.
So, how would you say your career evolved, like over the past, let's say, 5 years? You know.
Well, so I had a big stint with Melbourne Bounce back in like 2014 or 15, whenever that was popular, with like TJR was popping up.
Yeah.
So that's when that's initially how I got in touch with Timmy to put our record out. So I was signing like I had a pretty significant soar in popularity back then. I signed 3 records with Hustle Recordings, which was like the premier Melbourne Bounce label back then. Anything that came out that was like a big Melbourne Bounce release came out on that. So it was super exciting for me. Like I got like so Hustle is owned by Ministry of Sound Australia, which is now called Tomorrow Music. So they make those really popular compilations that are called like Clubber's Guide or the Annual. So some of my songs got on that. That was really exciting. Big, awesome DJ support. Everybody from Tiesto, like Hardwell, a lot of great support on those records. But after Melbourne Bounce died, I kind of saw like a decrease in popularity, and it took me like a couple of, but I mean, just like anything else, right?
Yeah.
And I also kind of started changing my approach to making music to more of a songwriting, more song based, vocals and like that kind of song structure as opposed to club bangers.
Yeah.
So I kind of got away from the heavier club stuff and started writing songs, and it took me a few years to kind of see a resurgence in popularity. And last year kind of all culminated with the big year that I had last year.
So, has there been any like resources that have really helped you on your journey as a artist?
Yeah, man, YouTube for sure. Splice is great. In terms of production, Splice is fantastic. You've got access to like a lot of great samples. You can just hammer through them until you find the right one, as opposed to like spending $30 on a sample pack. You go through and every single sample is crap. That's great. YouTube is at a different level nowadays. Like when I first started, there was one guy, Ryan Ezed, and he used to make Complextro tutorials. And that was the only guy you could go to watch YouTube. Now you can literally go on YouTube and watch Retrovision make a song in 30 minutes.
You could probably learn how to make a song on YouTube. You could probably reproduce someone's song from
you can
just
even
watching
download and you can even download full songs made and just like see how they made them, and just being able to look into that has helped so much.
So cool.
Guys like Kashmir have done so much for the community, giving out free sample packs and free lessons, and you don't even need to go to school anymore. You can literally get an education on how to make music on YouTube.
Yeah. So, what is your favorite memory related to your career as an artist?
Probably the first time I got any major DJ support, which was in 2013. Avicii opened up his podcast with a remix that I did.
No way.
And just hearing, and I still have it, like the clip.
That's amazing.
Just hearing him say my name, I thought I was gonna fucking scream, dude. I was so excited. One of my buddies texted me because it was like it's literally like the 12th. Its podcast was called Levels. And I think it was like the 12th episode of it or something. He's like, "Did you hear the new Avicii podcast?" And I was like, "No, why?" He goes, "Go check tracklist."
Oh, man.
And I saw it right there. It was that song, "If I Lose Myself" by One Republic. I did a remix of that back in like 2000. I don't even remember. But and just hearing him say, "Yeah, and this is the Kastra remix of If I Use Myself." I was like, "Oh my God." I was so excited, man. It was crazy.
He was really taking off at that time.
Oh yeah, he was like on top of his game. So
100%.
It was just like the coolest thing ever.
So
yeah, I would say probably that.
So tell us something else. I mean, you said probably not that. So.
No, probably that.
Okay.
Anytime you're in like not to sound like a pompous asshole, but it's like now it's like when you get those levels of people playing your tracks, it's cool.
Yeah.
But it's almost like it should be expected at this point. It's like in the beginning, like the first person who ever played one of my tracks was Chucky. I did a remix of, and this was like 2012 Chucky when he was like on top of the world.
Yeah.
You remember that song he did, Who's Ready to Jump?
I'm pretty sure.
It was one of his like earlier hits. So I did a remix of that, and he played it in a live set in London, and there was a live recording of it, and it was on YouTube or something. And somehow he got a hold of the song, and it was played, and I was just so excited, man. He didn't shout my name out or anything because it was live.
Yeah.
But just like hearing like a real DJ.
So I've had that experience with one of my songs where Alan Walker actually played it at EDC in Mexico.
Unbelievable, right? It's like you're just like, holy shit.
Exactly. Because you feel
like
so
self-validating.
That's kind of like the goal of all artists. You want the big guys to realize it.
It's self-validating. It's like And it's like those are the kind of things. Those are the kind of things that make you keep going,
Yeah.
right? You're just like, my God, Alan Walker just played my track. He heard the song and thought it was good enough to play it. He's like, that's. You're like, wow, maybe I can do this. And then you got enough of those moments, and then you
Exactly.
could like, you're just rolling.
So I feel as if there's like many people who believe that making music could become overwhelming. Why do you think that people believe that?
Like, there's a bunch of reasons. I'm so fortunate in the fact that I have musical training. So, like, since 13, I've learned music theory and I know songwriting and all those kind of things. So when I picked up music production, it was just the final piece of the
Did you ever
puzzle.
play piano?
No, I know my way around the piano, but my dexterity in playing it is just not that great. I'm much more proficient at the guitar.
Yeah.
So I'll write on guitar a lot. Like when I'm trying to find chords or something, I'll just write them and then like, oh, that sounds right, and then just
So
translate it to piano.
do you involve guitar into your music or?
A lot, yeah, especially recently.
So I know you know Gazzo.
Of course, yeah, he's a great friend of mine.
Yeah,
We used
same.
to have the same manager.
What's his name again?
Rob Calabrese.
Yeah, he's managing what's his name? Yo Mace and Gazzo, right?
Right.
So what I see in his music is he really involves instruments, whether it's a bass or a
Yeah.
guitar. Like I feel like that's really cool. I mean, that's not what EDM is about necessarily, but I feel like
No,
it's,
but some of the biggest tracks of all time have guitar in it.
and that's
right?
why I love it because I
Titanium.
feel like we're creating this new, not genre, but this new way of making dance music, and it's just going to
Sure.
evolve into a point where it's going to be more natural, and I love that. You know?
Sure. And it has. Look at the last year or two, like guys like Elenium or Griffin,
Yeah.
right? Or who's that other dude who's Dabin, Dabin. Like they all incorporate guitar into their compositions, and it gives it this more rich, organic feel to it. It's like as opposed to everything being so syncopated and or it gives it a feeling of looseness
Yeah.
to it. And I've noticed that early on, so I kind of have been doing it a lot more recently.
All right. So, what would you really consider? What genre would you consider your music to be, or do you not really consider your music a genre?
I would say it floats in between a couple of things. If I had to narrow it down to two categories, I would say it's somewhere in between future house and progressive house.
Nice.
It's very vocal based. It's very melodic. Now that's at this point. Like I said, 5 years ago, it was totally different.
So, who really inspired you to make that genre of music? I mean, obviously you were making your different type of music back in the day, but
Well, dude, I kind of just tried to get back to like what I fell in love with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I fell in love with Alesso and Artie and like all those kind of guys. So I kind of just wanted to take it and put like a more modern spin on it. It's like not that those songs don't hold up, but kind of like take modern production techniques and kind of utilize them. And like recently, I've been really inspired by like synthwave sounds. So I've been like incorporating a lot of that into my music. The cool thing about this job and different than any other period in musical history is like you can change your sound and evolve it to how you're feeling at the time. Obviously, you want to keep it to like on brand, but if it's somewhere in between progressive house and somewhere in between future house, it overlaps, and that's where I am.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
so like I feel as if the music industry has overall just evolved, being that the internet has come in. How do you feel about the internet and how it impacts the music industry?
I think for the most part, it's a good thing. Um, you know, like I said, the information that you can go out there to find and start learning music, the accessibility to new artists is much less barriers to entry. Um,
You think there are any cons?
Cons, I would say not really.
All right.
Maybe because of the way that social media is, you can essentially project this image of success without actually being successful. But that's like marketing's been going on like that since the
Yeah,
inception
I
of
mean,
music. But I feel like it could be easier now than ever, more easier now than ever. You know
yeah, I
what I
get
mean?
that. So if you could change anything about the industry, what would it be?
Um, I'm trying to say something. I don't know. I just don't want to step on any toes.
Yeah.
But I would say that like there's some people that are in music that have no business being in music. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that.
You can make a career
And I could give you an
in this
example. I'll step
industry.
on toes.
No, I don't want to, especially if this is going to be released.
No.
But
I'm talking like I'm not specifically stepping on toes, but like I feel like there are some YouTubers that try and getting into the rapping, and
okay,
that's listen, that's great. That's awesome. If you can do it and you can do it where it's good, you know?
right. Okay, so I'll give you another example of that right now. So it's like a big thing right now is celebrities getting into DJing,
Yeah.
right? So it's like I don't know. There's plenty of them.
Yeah, I
can't
know what
think
you're
of any
talking
examples,
about.
but you look at any club schedule, you're going to see a celebrity DJing event.
I
And
think we both know one of them. He was a basketball player, not going to say names, but
yeah, so you don't even need to. I'm sure you can look at any club
yeah.
schedule and you can see what I mean. And not to say that they can't be good at DJing. I mean, DJing in itself is not a hard thing to learn. Reading a crowd is difficult to learn.
100%.
But if people are just there to see you, I understand why clubs would do it because they're going to bring a massive crowd.
Yeah.
It's like they're not gonna you're gonna still see a performance as opposed to them just like being there and hosting a party. You know what I mean? So that's a problem. It's a problem for artists like me because that could
Cuts
get
you out
totally
of
out
the
of control
picture,
really
yeah.
quick. That could really get out of control fast. You know what I mean? Like you could see now all celebrity DJs and then actual artists who make music are pushed, or it could be just like now your brand is the most important thing. How many Instagram followers you have as opposed to like your ability to make music, and that's definitely a concern.
Yeah, I would listen, if they become good at it and they
Fine.
yeah, exactly. But if you're going to just do it for the popularity and the money and all that, then you don't belong in the industry. The music industry
Yeah.
is based off of just doing it for the people and helping people get through certain times, That's what I believe.
Sure. Sure, and I don't think there's a lot of them out there that are claiming to be musicians. You know what I mean? They're entertainers, and I don't knock the hustle,
Yeah.
man. I get it. If somebody gives you an opportunity for money, that's totally fine. I'm just saying, it's a concern to the music industry, I would say, because you've got performers that are not essentially musicians. But like I said, I mean, the best stuff rises to the top anyway. So I mean, if your music is good enough, you're gonna get
Yeah.
it.
All right, man. So we're getting close to the end, but I got a couple more questions for you. If you can give us 3 tips regarding production, life as a musician slash artist, and yeah, what would it be?
So just 3 tips.
3 tips.
They could be anything from being a musician to production. Just 3 general
Yeah.
tips. Okay, I would say when you're making music, look at the big picture of a song. Don't get so focused in on things that people aren't going to notice anyway. Like I said, don't sit there and compress something for 2.5 hours. No one is going to notice that.
Yeah.
Like you can make great music with minimal gear at this point. You know what I
100%.
mean?
All
Like,
you need is a MacBook or a computer.
yeah, seriously. You're going to need like 1 or 2 synths, but that's about it. You can essentially make it like, everybody likes to have fun with analog gear and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's great, but you can't hear, like you can't tell. No one's going to listen to that song, but like, oh, that was made on an SSL
Yeah.
board. Like, no one gives a shit. No one cares.
Listen, I feel like
if the song is good.
sorry, but like I feel like
Go
in
ahead.
Logic Pro, I don't know if you use Logic, but
I use Ableton,
yeah.
but I'm familiar with Logic,
So
of course.
I
Yeah.
feel like Logic is definitely the best for the new producers because their stock plugins are freaking amazing.
Fantastic.
Absolutely
Fantastic.
amazing.
They are. I would definitely agree with that. It's definitely. It kind of depends on what you're trying to do, right? Like, I would say that Ableton is the most creatively fluent software. It's the easiest I've found for people to get an idea out and be in the creative process. When it comes to mixing, it's not even close. Logic is infinitely better. So, kind of depends, but like I said, the DAW isn't what's important. It's the song is important.
100%.
So try to keep the big picture in focus when you're trying to make music. Number 2, take everyone's opinion and advice and feedback with a grain of salt because, like I said, I've had people pass on hit records before.
Yeah.
I've had people tell me that a melody wasn't good when it was good. And I've done this to people
So
too.
so at
When you
what point
go ahead.
would you say, I'm not going to listen to this person? He's definitely wrong.
Well, I would get feedback from a bunch of people. If everyone says something is wrong, there's something wrong.
Okay.
But if one person says something and no one else says anything, just use your best judgment. Um, like when you're sending songs to people, right? So that person could be in a bad mood, had a horrible day, and you send them some song. Hey man, what do you think of this? It's okay.
Yeah.
You just spent 12 hours working on that, and he said, it's okay. You're gonna feel like shit, but it could be good. It could just be that person. So send it to a bunch of different people whose opinions you respect. And the third thing.
Tell us something more about life as an artist. How to navigate
So
yourself through
yeah.
success.
So this works for me. Everyone is different. I treat this job as a
Yeah.
job. So I stop working every night at about 7
Oh, really?
because I can't sleep after I work if I work too
Oh,
late.
that's
So it's like if I work till
totally
10,
different story for me.
oh my God, I can't, dude. It's like trying to slow a car down going from 100
100%.
miles an
Because
hour to
once you're in
0.
that musical groove, you're like,
Creative
yeah,
process.
you're just like,
It's
I can't
impossible.
stop.
It's impossible. So I realized that a couple of years ago, and so I stopped. Like, listen, I'm not going to make music past 7 o'clock anymore because it takes me like 3 hours to wind
Yeah.
down. Now I
So
realize that's
basically,
not
like,
possible for
you got to
everyone.
limit yourself to the musical process because it's overwhelming.
Right. So I mean, but now I understand that's not possible for everyone. Like this is my full-time job, right? Like I do this all day,
Yeah.
every single day. If you work another job and you get home at 5, you got to take what you can get.
Exactly.
So, but so for me, I try to treat it like a job. So like every morning, I wake up early and start to work early, and then I go to bed early, and then so that I can do that, as opposed to going to bed late, trying to sleep. I can't because I
Yeah.
can't get this melody on loop out of my head, and then I fall asleep at 3 o'clock in the morning, wake up late, and then it's all this out of whack. So keeping a structure helps a lot. But like I said, man, like when you're first starting out, you might not have that freedom, but you got to just like maintain a discipline, and that will get you further. If you have a system in place for being creative and a system in place for advancing your career, you'll get a lot further than just like winging it every day. You know what I mean?
So, what's next for you, man? What's next for you in this industry? Where are we gonna see you?
Well, so my next track will come out in May. It's another radio type track. I'm gonna start moving a little bit into more like synthwave type stuff. So it's like I'm still gonna be making house music and upbeat dance music, but I'm gonna try to branch out a little bit to more maybe 110, 115 BPM
Oh,
type
nice.
stuff,
Yeah.
and then maybe complement that with like a VIP remix, which is what a lot of people are doing. So and then try to maybe back that up with some tough club records, maybe some stuff that fits on like Hexagon or something. And then hopefully once the quarantine and we're able to go to concerts again, I want to hopefully get back out and start playing again. And then it's hard, man. We're in uncharted territory right now.
Unfortunately, man.
It's very interesting times, but everyone's kind of just doing their best to navigate it.
Yeah.
So ask me again in 4 months, and then I'll have a better answer for you.
One day, hopefully, you'll come back on.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to.
Alrighty, guys. So that's the end of this podcast. This is a music talk podcast with Kastra, and yeah, man. You have anything else you want to say?
No, I mean, I'll just plug a couple things.
100%, please do.
You can find me at all my social media is at Kastra Music. I have a new radio show that's once a month called Night Shift Radio. Focuses on future house, electro house, and progressive house. And I do every Monday, I do something on YouTube called Mashup Monday, where I just put a featured mashup of mine on there. You can get it for free. And yeah, just keep in touch with me.
100%, man.
If you want to reach out, I'm happy to listen to. And thanks for having me, man. This was a blast.
Alrighty, man. Thank you for coming on.
No problem,
All
bro.
right.